Until we start acknowledging that there is a component of choice and personal agency in addiction, the perpetrators of abuse will continue to skate accountability in favor of a narrative that tells them they are victims of a lifelong chronic condition with no cure. Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I am Matt.
I'm Paige.
Let's talk about the disease model of addiction today, and how, while it may be a disease, that is not an excuse, and how this conversation has absolutely hijacked the conversation around addiction, what it is from a scientific perspective, a social and moral perspective, and how this affects people like partners and spouses that are also affected by addiction, and how this, in our opinion, has been one of the more damaging aspects of the development of addiction and understanding of addiction over the last decade plus. Pretty interesting conversation we're going to have, spurred about by some interesting comments that we received over the weekend. Social media is so much fun.
Yeah, it's a blast.
It's going to be a really cool conversation. Prefacing this, as we oftentimes do, by saying we are not addiction professionals. We are not therapists. This is a show from two people who have been here, done that, and have opinions, because everyone's allowed to have an opinion about things. We're allowed to have conversations. It is not reserved for experts, quote unquote, experts, to have conversations about things like this. So stick with us. Let's have a good conversation. Hopefully get some things turning in your mind. And I think it's going to be very, very validating, if anything at all.
Yes.
Hey, thanks to SoberLink. SoberLink has been a sponsor of our show for quite some time now, and they've been amazing. If you don't know what it is, think of SoberLink as the ultimate accountability device. It's a breathalyzer, but it's so much more than that. This is a device that if you're someone who is struggling with substance use, alcohol in particular, and you are for real this time about showing other people in your life that you're serious about stopping, get a SoberLink. Put your money where your mouth is and show them. SoberLink is a device that will alert people that you designate as trusted contacts in your sobriety journey, so they know 3-4 times a day, however many times you guys choose, that they will know that you are sober every time you use the device. It has military grade, facial recognition technology, so that you know the person using the device is the person that was intended to use it. It is tamper-proof, and it has a 24/7 team on standby to review the data. So if you've got cologne on, maybe something heavy with alcohol in it, or you've had something, kombucha or whatever that stuff is, it's got
fermented
something, right?
Something
they know
in
the
it.
difference between some of these lighter signals if someone's had alcohol versus the real deal, and they will ask you to retest, because you have humans that are reviewing the data that know the difference. So you will be asked to retest to avoid a lot of those uncomfortable conversations. It can also show people when you're struggling, which is just as important, because you might need the support to be there, the accountability for people to say, hey, what's going on? If you're serious, oftentimes people will say, I'm serious this time. This time's going to be different. I always ask the question, well, what makes this time different? Let SoberLink make this time different. If you're a parent and you are in a custody dispute, if you are separating and you are worried about where your children are going, it can also be written into your custody agreement. I would highly advise that. If you're going to be sending your children somewhere, don't you want to know that they're safe? Don't you want to be able to trust that the person they're with, their mother or father, is sober? SoberLink will give you that peace of mind. No more conversations around you have to use and send me a screenshot of your breathalyzer, any of that. It's written in the agreement. It's there. Let SoberLink be the bad guy, okay? It is trusted by over 200,000 people, and it is court admissible in all 50 states and in Canada. It is the gold standard in court. They are very familiar with it. They know what it is, so if you bring it up, they will know exactly what you're talking about. They have been extremely generous, SoberLink has, and given our listeners 50% off a device. All you have to do is go to soberlink.com/wheels, where you can also review the different plans that you can get on, subscription plans. You can review testimonials. You can learn more about the device itself, but most importantly, get 50% off by using our link, soberlink.com/wheels. Enter your email address in, and they will email you a voucher, a coupon code to get 50% off a device. So support the companies that support our show, and thank you to SoberLink for sponsoring today's show.
Thank you.
Let's get this one going, baby.
Okay. First of all, you look really handsome, really cute today.
Because I have glasses on?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. And you got your hat on backwards, and you're wearing a fun little hoodie. I don't know. You look cute. I like it.
Thank
I'm digging your look.
This is, what would I call this? This is like Suburban dad chic.
This is just Matt. there's a thing for it. I don't know anything about fashion, but I just think you look adorable.
Thank you.
Anyway, okay, so we've wanted to discuss this topic for a while now. We've had people ask about it. We've hinted around it. Like, a lot of our listeners do know our opinion on it, but we haven't really like gone into depth on it.
Not in a standalone episode.
No, we haven't. And recently we did receive a message online on social media that was just kind of reiterated why we do what we do, right? And why this needs to be discussed, and why the disease model of addiction can be extremely dangerous. We have had people post in our community certain articles about how we need to be treating addiction just like we treat cancer patients, with more compassion and stuff like that. And Matt and I argue this because even when he was in treatment, they were talking about the disease model. Honestly, I checked out during all of this section because I was just like, okay, this just seems so off base for me. And you never picked up on it either, right? Like, it was never something like, I remember you saying that you would listen to it, but you were just like, okay, this is interesting, but like, that's not really what it was for me.
Never resonated with me personally, ever.
Right.
Not at any point.
Right. So we're just going to talk about, like, why people call it a disease and how it can be dangerous for some of the partners and spouses. And honestly, it can be dangerous for people in active addiction because they hold on to that shit for dear life. It's like, it gives them a free pass to not have accountability.
Yeah, a lot of people use it to skate accountability. They'll use it as both the justification and the excuse for why they do the things they do. And it pins people into this corner where, how do you defend that if someone has a disease? Because we've all been taught from the time that we're young that diseases are bad. People don't ask for them. They deserve compassion. Mm-hmm. This is a sick person. This isn't a bad person. This is a sick person. So it's really complicated when that same person is abusing you, or they're showing up in your family and they're harming the family in some way, financially, by creating tension, or if there's been infidelity. There could be a million things that are sort of like ancillary from this disease that are very unique to addiction that aren't really attributable to other diseases. Mm-hmm. And so people get confused. On one hand, their gut's telling them, this isn't right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they have experts with degrees and alphabet soup behind their name telling them this is a disease. And so who do you listen to?
Right.
And it becomes complicated.
It does.
And so what we have a lot of are people sort of self-censoring the way they truly feel about addiction as a disease. And I think that I think it's arrested some of the needed accountability that is present in all recovery forms.
Yes.
I don't care what sort of path you choose to recover. Pick one, doesn't matter which one. They all are going to involve some path of accountability, I think, if they're going to be valid for a family system or a relationship moving forward. Mm-hmm. That's just my opinion on it. And so I think that this disease thing is really complicated things. So just a brief I'm not a physician by any means. I've read books about the topic. I think I understand it well enough to give our listeners a brief synopsis of why it's called a disease. Mm-hmm. So in medicine and science, when a system of the body has changed in physical form, we will call that a disease. If you have diabetes, your pancreas is different in physical form than that of a normal person. So that is a disease. Diabetes is a disease of the pancreas. Cancer is a disease. There are cells that are mutating. It is chaos. That is a disease. Addiction, so the chemicals that we put into our bodies can change in form, physically change the structure of the brain. And we will call that a disease. But what I think is interesting about the concept of disease is that it's more about scientific classification. Mm-hmm. And it's, by definition, it is a disease. But right. I think it's so much more nuanced than what the general population thinks of a disease.
Right.
Because it's not like cancer. Stop comparing it to cancer. It is not cells that are mutating in chaos for no particular reason because of genetics or some environmental factor. It is not that simple. It's just not. Addiction is complex, okay? For every person that has addiction, there's a multitude of reasons for why that individual has got what they've got.
Okay.
For every person that has leukemia or some sort of cancer, we know that there are treatments out there that work. They will receive maybe a slightly different version of a chemotherapy cocktail, but for the most part, we know what treats cancers. We know what treats a cold. We know what treats flu. We know what treats these things. Addiction's in the brain, right? So it's partly genetic, yes. It's partly environment, yes. It's partly choice, and no one wants to talk about that, but it's partly choice. It does involve some sense of morality. Mm-hmm. And then there's this X factor, and there's this trauma conversation that takes place, and that people are it's untreated trauma, and this is their best attempt at hiding and masking pain. But there are also people, and no one wants to discuss these people, that love an altered state of mind. They love to get high.
Right.
And they've had good upbringings, and they've had what anyone would consider not a traumatic experience in their life that would lead them to that life.
Right.
And so what we have is deep learning and behavioral changes over time through the process of neuroplasticity. It is the process of the brain learning a behavior and rewiring itself for stimulus, a substance, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And I might have lost you at some point, but what I'm saying is it's not the same as cancer. It's just simply not. Is it a disease? Yes, but it is not like most people think of a disease, okay?
Right.
A disease for classification, yes. A disease, possibly, if you're a bit of a conspiracy theorist, so insurance companies can bill exorbitant amounts, or so treatment centers can bill insurance companies these exorbitant amounts of money for treatment. It made it medical, right? So once it's medical, you can receive medical treatment. But what's interesting is that for a lot of these treatment centers, they're running a non-scientific approach in a 12-step program, and they're billing people $30,000 for room, board, meals, and like 2 days of detox. Mm-hmm. So disease, not a disease, moral, it's very complicated. But what I do know is that if you feel like this conversation doesn't land, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
And you're not wrong for feeling that way.
Right. And the reason the disease model has come up so much within the past decade or whatnot is that it was meant to reduce shame, right? Like yes, there's something that goes on within your brain. We know that. And it's meant to educate those that are in addiction that, look, we know it's really hard for you to deal with this. It's hard for you to stop. It's hard for you to do all those things. But it typically just stops there. Like a lot of addicts will just have that mindset of like, oh my gosh, I have a disease. I'm powerless. I can't do anything about it. Instead of saying, look, yeah, it's a disease. It does change your mind. But guess what? You can do something about it. You can change your brain. You can rewire it by making different choices. You can choose to recover. No one said that that's easy, but it is doable. And that's where people stop. And even loved ones stop there too, because they'll have their addicts or their loved ones tell them, hey, I have a disease, it's so bad. I can't do anything about it. I'm powerless. And then they'll eat that shit up and think like, okay, you've got a disease. I don't know what to do about that. I'm so sorry. I feel for you. But we're here to tell you that they can do something about it. It's not a disease that's going to just affect them for the rest of their lives to where they cannot change.
Yes.
You can change. We can all change.
Yeah, there are options for treatment. There are ways to get better. We know that there are many people that no longer have the problem they once did. It is not a lifelong chronic condition with no cure, in my opinion.
Right.
I think that you can rewire your mind, you can develop healthy behaviors, and you stay away from that substance, then you're in good shape.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the person who has abused substances to understand the science and how their brain is functioning.
It is.
I do think that that's somewhat important, but for the loved one, I don't think that it is as crucial, honestly.
I've seen this used a few different ways.
Yes.
So I've been around recovery for over a decade, and I've met thousands of people who are trying to get sober, who have been sober for quite some time, who are really struggling. Some just never really got it. But what I'm saying is all different walks of life, okay? There's one group of people that will hear they have a disease, and that's as far as they will take it. What they hear when you tell them they have a disease is they can't help it. End of story.
Yep.
That's the end of it. And these people are out everywhere.
Yes.
It seems like half the commenters in TikTok are this type. They have a disease. I have a disease. It's worse than cancer, as one person told me this
Somebody
weekend.
said it was 10 times worse than cancer, actually.
Talk to a cancer patient about that. Come back to me, by the way.
Yeah.
But either way, it's 10 times worse than cancer. This is a person who is still very abusive, very dysregulated, nowhere close to being healthy. And they're using it as justification for why they're being a piece of shit.
Yes.
That's what a lot of people do with it.
Yes.
There are other people that will take this message and they say, you have a disease. And this is sort of where I fell, I think, between this one and the next one. Mm-hmm. This one where it's like, oh shit, like this is serious. Like
right.
This isn't like, hey, I'm going to start flossing or something, you know, and make a habit to start flossing. Put a Post-it note in my mirror that says, make sure you floss this morning. And before you know it, you're just your dentist is giving you high fives. Mm-hmm. Like it wasn't like that. It was a little more complicated. And for me, what it did was let me know this shit is serious and something has actually changed in my brain. But it's not hopeless. It's not helpless. Mm-hmm. But it does explain why this is so difficult to kick.
Right.
And it let me know that something was different in my body. And it let me know that this explained why every time that I would have some little bout of sobriety, like a month or something, why when I picked back up and started to use again, it was so quick to go back right where I started.
I don't think you went a month ever.
Okay. I was Cali sober for a little while. And then I picked back up on pills and like within, a month or two, I was right back to taking full blown amounts. Or for some people, why when that substance gets in their body, it feels like you have absolutely no control over how much you're about to use. Like the bets are off. That explains it.
Yes.
And for those people, it lets them know. I think I've seen people use this, and for them, we will all have the thought at some point in recovery, man, I've been sober for a couple of years now. I wonder if I could drink again. Mm-hmm. For many people, they go back to that disease concept and they say, wait a second, remember that disease we have?
Yes, I think that's very important.
Yeah. Remember that disease we have?
Yes.
That's why we can't. That's a fucking terrible idea, man.
Right.
Don't do it. And you go, oh, okay. That's right. That's right. That thing. So you remember it because that's a very concrete idea to have that I have a disease.
Right. And that also goes back to the neuroplasticity where like your brain, you've wired it a certain way for many, many years. And it could easily go back to that original wiring that you had done with the habits of using drugs or alcohol or whatnot. But and you've changed it for maybe 2 years, but you could easily go back if you start doing it again.
Yeah,
that happens with any habit.
Pathways are still accessible,
right?
And they will become familiar before you know it,
right?
You know?
Yes.
I think there's sort of like a nuanced third way to look at this, and this is kind of where I seem to fall now. And as I've come to understand more about the neuroscience of just addiction and just neuroscience in general, neuroplasticity and how our brains can change over time, and like methods that are newer, like the Sinclair method, for instance, which really leverages neuroplasticity as a way to separate the harmful behaviors of drinking from alcohol itself. Some people are able to go on and moderate their drinking later in life. I wouldn't suggest people go out and try that, but there are people that do it and they are able to manage it. And so what that tells me is that disease, but changeable. So is it even really a disease? It's sort of like this gray area.
I'd also like
right?
to question if their behaviors actually really change. So do you want to have an episode on that?
I will probably make this comment many times throughout this episode is anytime I see somebody that has claimed to have beat addiction and they're drinking normally and they have no problems in their lives or they're using heroin recreationally. I've heard someone literally say that.
Wait, what?
Yes. I always want to ask the question, let me talk to your wife. Let me talk to your wife.
Or your adult children if you have adult children.
Give me an hour with your adult children and your wife so I can get the real story.
Yeah.
That's what I always want to say. But I do know that the brain is an amazing thing and it can change. It can rewire itself. And this is why, we had Celeste on. And like Celeste is she's the type of person in recovery. She's like, I don't call myself an alcoholic. Like, I think it's really strange. Like if you were a smoker and you quit smoking, like you don't call yourself a smoker.
Right.
It was a time in her life where she struggled with something and she learned how to navigate past it. And she doesn't consider it part of her identity anymore. I think that's kind of like this third box. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Where it's more about like what's on the horizon, what's next, how do we move forward while honoring the past that we know to be true about ourselves. And I think this is sort of like the neuroscience perspective to take on it. But I think what we have generally in conversation is this old school idea that it's just a moral failing versus this idea that it's a disease and they can't help it. And therefore, they can't be held accountable either.
Right. So can we kind of break that down because I wanted to get into that next about, we called it a moral failing for a really long time. And I want to talk about, where's the middle ground? So we're going to discuss why we don't call it a moral failing. And then I want to talk about why we feel like it is a moral failing and then where we can reframe it.
Okay.
So you talked about it earlier, how complex addiction is. And whenever we call it the moral failing, it oversimplifies the complex problem. So we know that addiction can be influenced by genetics. It can be influenced by brain chemistry, your environment, learned behavior, which is part of social learning theory as well, trauma, and then also, yes, personal choices. There is a component of personal choice when it comes to addiction. So when you reduce it to saying that you're just a bad person, you kind of shut down the understanding or the responsibility and the recovery.
Yes.
Because then it brings on a little bit more shame for them, which we've talked about shame too and how it's important to own that and then move from it. But like you said earlier, it's not like you're not a bad person, you're a sick person. But there's also a nuance there too. There is a line.
Yeah. Like I'm glad that we've gotten away from telling people that they're just horrible humans and do better and suck it up and quit being a dipshit, whatever.
Or
else.
just stop. Why can't you just stop? Why can't you just be better? Why can't you just do this? Like, we know that it's difficult to do that.
I mean, and if you want to go back in history, hang on, I got to check something on the computer real quick.
What? Why?
And if you want to go back in history and look at the way that alcoholics were treated, like for instance, like back in the 30s and even prior to that,
right?
These people were thrown in asylums. They were experimented on with all kinds of different chemicals and like electroshock therapy and straitjackets. They were considered like, and some of them were tortured. Like it was a moral failing. If you could just act right, then everything would be okay without understanding the science.
Right.
We understood the science and now we've gone almost too far where we're giving people passes for everything.
Yeah. We confuse compassion with justification. Because we've swung too far to like protecting them from the stigma that we minimize or we ignore the red flags that are in front of us, that's really causing harm to other people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And also if we call it a moral failing, like I said earlier, and you've said, is like, it does promote shame and non-accountability. I
just don't think listen, is it beneficial to kick someone when they're down? No, not really. But I think that means different things for different people. Some people being held accountable means kicking them when they're down.
Right.
But I do see comments where people will say that you're a weak person if you can't control your intake. You are a weak and broken person.
Right.
And that's not true either.
That's not true either.
We know it's a little more complex than that. But what we have is the good old-fashioned pendulum of life, right? We go from one extreme to another extreme. We learn a little more each time it swings back the other direction, but seldom, if ever, do we ever find balance there. What I hope that we can do is sort of give you our perspective, because I think it's a little bit more balanced than what most people
I agree. No, I think we do have.
I
think we do. We do. We have more of a gray area, like a balanced area when it comes to this. We aren't one way or the other. We try to help everybody find the middle ground and understand when to tolerate and when not to tolerate, and when to move on and when not to move on. It's that's what makes us kind of different than anything else that's out there.
Yeah, and I think that just to be transparent here, Paige and I were talking about this earlier. Like, let's say that compassion had a spectrum from 0 to 10. Mm-hmm. Let's say that having zero compassion for someone is someone that abuses children. For me, I have zero compassion for anyone that hurts children. I cannot find it in my heart, regardless of what that person has been through, to feel badly for them or to want to even rehabilitate them. I just don't. You hurt children. That is my line. I'm done. I'm done with that person. Let's get rid of them. Don't care. Shoot them into outer space.
What about those that are like mentally harming children?
Harming children. We'll just say harming children, right?
Okay. I mean, okay, keep going.
I don't want to necessarily distinguish, because then we're going to spend the next 10 minutes
talking
about
know
what that looks like. You harm children, end of story, out of my book. Where on the other side, a 10 is, let's say, a child with cancer, something like that. Mm-hmm. That is a 10 for me. That is the worst thing in the world that could happen to a person, a family, mm-hmm. a mother, a father watching this happen. So you bleed
compassion.
Yes. Bleed compassion for a 10. For me personally, addiction falls somewhere in the 4 to 5 range, probably, mm-hmm. for compassion. That's where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And Paige is a little lower.
I am. I'm a 3.
Just to let people know.
Yes, I'm a 3.
Kind of where we're at. But that wasn't always that way, right? There was a time in my recovery over the last decade where I was probably like a 7 or 6.
I would agree with that. Yep.
The work that we do exposes us to some of the worst stories that you can hear.
Yeah.
And I think that has changed my perspective about some of this. Because I've seen the way people are treated by people that struggle with addiction. I've seen the worst of it. And I think that a lot of people that have bleeding compassion, a 10 for addiction, haven't seen what I've seen.
Nope.
And if you've seen what I've seen, you would change your mind too.
I
okay.
agree.
So I just want to please understand that it's not that we're sitting here trying to beat anybody up, but talk to people who've worked in trauma units in a hospital for a while about what they think about drunk drivers and things like that and the type of sympathy they have. All right. I'm sure it's changed over the years considering what they've seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
It changes you a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just want to be transparent about that, but do our best to not let that sort of change the discussion, because I think I want to give a fair shake to both sides of this, because there are people truly who listen. I know that they listen, who are 10 and they look at their loved one and they see the whole picture of why this person is where they are. And maybe they're not so abusive. Maybe it's just more of the sad type where it's like, God, man, they've been through so much and they're hurting and they don't want to hurt anyone else and they're trying, they just can't kick it. And I don't want to single them out. I get that just as much, believe me.
But we understand the spectrum too. We've seen it all the way.
I've just seen so much of the bad.
We've seen so much. Yeah, we really have.
Changes you a little bit.
Yeah, it does. But I want to talk about also how it does feel like a moral failing. So people get hurt. And they get hurt by things that that happen a lot in addiction, like lying, cheating, stealing, abuse. These are moral injuries. These are not just symptoms. A lot of people will call them symptoms of something, but these are moral issues. These are things that are actually harming other people. So yes, it's a problem. It is a moral issue. It's a moral failing when it comes to that.
I think as a society, this is like, let's just talk about morality for a second.
Okay.
I mean, we could get into the philosophy of morality all day long.
Oh yeah,
but
for sure.
Let's just, for simply put, as a society, we have decided that some things are good, some things are bad, some things are right, and some things are wrong. There's unacceptable and there's acceptable behavior.
Right.
And if we're looking at the quote unquote symptoms, as you mentioned, or the effects that addicted people have on their loved ones, there is the issue of morality that comes up. Cheating, lying, stealing. These are wrong because they are moral failings. They really are.
Yes.
Because we've decided that these things are not acceptable.
Well, the reason they're not acceptable is because they actually harm people. They actually harm other people.
Yeah.
They make you feel like you don't know who you are anymore. You question yourself. Like, it actually causes trauma in other people when you do these things.
Yes.
You're not just harming yourself. And that's another thing that we could totally get into, because we hear these comments all the time on social media about how, they're only harming themselves. They're not harming anybody else. Or I'm only harming myself because I'm an addict and I'm just doing it to me. I'm not doing it to anybody else. And I call BS on that, and I have all the time, because the things that you're doing, if you're using, you're probably lying to somebody. And if you're lying to somebody, that's harming them. They are questioning their reality. They are losing their identity. They do not know who they are anymore. And you're completely messing with their entire livihhood and who they are. Their worldview.
Their assumptive
everything.
reality.
Yes. So don't tell me you're just affecting yourself and impact. You're not. You're impacting lots of people around you.
Yeah, you are. You're absolutely right about that.
So that's why these are moral failings. These are things that are harming other people. It's not just yourself.
Yeah, we have to acknowledge that there is some aspect of morality at play here, because we're talking about people's behaviors, right? It's not just the action of using the substance. It's not that simple. It's the behaviors and how they show up in our lives. And that is a moral issue. So when we're talking about morality, and we're not going to sit here and talk about what's right, what's wrong. We all kind of know that lying's bad. We know that stealing's bad. We know that harming other people when they're innocent is a bad thing.
And you can't blame the substance on these issues, these symptoms, as people would say, because I've seen where people who are in recovery still doing the same shit.
Well, not just that. You think about people with behavioral addictions.
Right. Like gambling.
Porn addiction.
Yes.
Sex addictions.
Right. Gambling addictions. Yes.
Compulsive shopping. Mm-hmm. These things, they have the same attributes. It's all the same shit.
Yes.
So it's not just that chemical and its effect on the mind. Eating, just, yes. So it's not just that chemical. No. You can look at that and say, that's an easy scapegoat right there. And there are so many people that want they want to promote that message as well. I've never been with that. I felt like it was so much deeper than that, and it always was with me. And I remember kind of snickering in the back of my head when I was in treatment, and they were telling us, like, it's not you, it's just the substance. It's just the substance. And I'm like, no, like, no, I know. Like,
They didn't really tell you that?
Absolutely, man, because they're trying to reduce the stigma of shame.
Okay, but that's not, it's just not accurate, because it doesn't make sense whenever even people who are not using or in recovery are still doing the same stuff. You can't blame it on that. You have to actually, like, you have some accountability and responsibility for those actions, not the substance. You can't, it's just like AA saying, like, it's just the alcohol, or it's the alcoholic, or Al-Anon. They'll say, it's not them. It's the substance. It's what they're doing. But like you said, if they're doing the same thing, but not actually taking a substance, what can you blame it on?
They'll say the disease
of addiction.
Yes. Separate it from the person. That way that you can keep that person in an environment where you still have compassion for them and enough patience for them so they can hopefully heal in a family system versus being left on their own to cause problems for everyone. And I think that a lot of people look at it as the moral thing to do, right? When we talk about, like, why this fear of the stigmatization of addiction? Well, I think that you can, first of all, it doesn't feel good to be an outcast in society. Like, it doesn't feel good, right? If you're struggling with something like addiction, it's not the best feeling in the world whenever people are kicking you while you're down. We remove the stigma from it. And so you take a little more pride in, okay, I can get better. I'm not bad. I'm just off base here. I've got to repair that, move forward. We can walk through this. Things can get better. It creates patience within a family, a spouse, whoever it might be, so that they can hold space for you while you go through this. Because if the alternative is, if you just tell them this is an immoral person, get away from them, they are fucking broken, they're going to ruin your life, what would the result be?
They just keep doing what they do.
Well, a lot more people would probably lose their loved ones.
Yeah.
If we're being honest, there'd be a lot more people, a lot more broken families that were, that didn't have a chance, that maybe they could have if there would have been just a little more patience. And so, like, how far do you push this patience button before you really hurt other people? And that's kind of where we're at, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets complicated.
Yeah, I think that there shouldn't be a huge stigma around addiction. I think there should be stigma around lying, cheating, stealing, and all of these things. I think there should be. I think that there ought to be. I think that this is the reason we have laws in a society around these things.
Exactly.
You go to jail for stealing. You go to jail for lying. You go to jail for this stuff.
Right. And that's why I wouldn't go down the path of, like, addiction or whatnot, because I knew the consequences. Like, it would scare me. It would startle me. I'm like, I was told that drugs are bad. Don't do this.
And that's enough for a lot of people. It is.
It is, but I know it's not enough for some people too, because, like we've said, your environment and things like that. That's like, we talked about this beforehand on how there was kind of a choice component, and like you've always said, addiction may not be a choice, but recovery is. And I always kind of not fight you on that, but I kind of, like, we talk about it, we discuss it on how there is somewhat of a choice component whenever you start using, because we have a lot of education growing up in schools and hopefully in our homes saying that drugs are bad. Don't do drugs. They can hurt you. They can harm you. Like, look what happens whenever you drive drunk. You can harm somebody. You can go to jail. Like, there are severe consequences. You can die. And for me, that was enough, because I'm like, I'm not going to choose to pick up a bunch of drugs because I know what it can do to me. And, but you chose to pick up drugs, even though you knew the same exact thing that I did.
Yeah. And there's no, like, criteria for this about what's more likely to drive someone toward addiction. We know that genetics play a huge role in this.
Yes.
Your biology plays a role.
Environment.
Yeah, but for every story I've ever heard about someone who had a really tough upbringing and resorted to drugs, I've also heard just as many stories about someone who was warned, who had a great upbringing, who was protected and sheltered from this stuff, and who was very aware of maybe a family history of addiction, and then just did it anyway.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like me in some ways.
Right.
Because everyone thinks that, no, I understand that you might have a problem, but you don't get me, because my particular mental makeup is such that I could control this. You don't know me. And we all say that. We all think that we're just going to be different.
That we're special.
It won't be me. right? It won't be me. That'll happen to them, but that's not me.
I will have control over this. I will know when to stop.
Absolutely.
I will know. There are those specific milestones. Like I'll know when to grow up or whatnot.
And it's when that specific mind and that idea and kind of that personality sort of intersects with opportunity in the environment and your biology. It's when bad shit happens. That's when you get F5 tornadoes.
Yeah.
It's the environment's, the atmosphere's just right to cause a fucking shitstorm.
Right.
And that's kind of what happens. But it's all over the place, man. They're like, I've got siblings. Not all of us have this problem. I've seen families where there might just be one quote unquote black sheep in the family. I've seen some families where everyone struggles.
Right.
It's all over the place.
It is.
It is all over the place.
It is.
When you were talking about choice though, like I woke up on, I think it was Sunday morning, and Paige was like, hey, we just got the meanest message we've ever received before. You got to check that out. And it was like directed at me, and she was kind of snickering about it.
I was.
She's like, you need to read it. You need to read it. And so I opened it up. I'm like, good grief, this person, man. This person was really, really, really pissed at 2 a.m. Claimed to be a couple years sober.
Well, clean, not
right?
sober. There's a difference.
Listen.
If you're listening, hold on. I want to clarify this because I don't think listeners understand this. Being clean means that you are off of drugs, but you could probably use marijuana or drink or do any type of substance that's kind of legal, right? And being sober means that you aren't drinking. So Matt is clean and sober.
Yeah, but there are also some people.
Okay.
So think of it as this is sort of like comes out of like 12-step. So NA, Narcotics Anonymous,
yes,
calls it clean time, and then AA calls it sobriety.
Yes.
I've seen this go both ways. So it's not just picking on the NA guys here. NA guys call themselves clean, but what they mean is from their drug of choice. Their DOC. So if it was heroin, they might drink some beers and they're clean because they're clean from their drug of choice, right? I want to talk to your wife, whether or not you're actually really free from this shit or not.
Right.
But I'm not going to sit here and judge what you decide to do. AA, I've seen it just as bad. I've seen people in AA show up completely fucking barred out on Xanax, but they didn't drink today, so they're sober, and they will give you their sobriety date 12 years prior or whatever it might be.
Oh,
yeah, and then
interesting.
Or there might be Cali sober or something like that. And so because the only requirement, the loophole is the only requirement for membership is desire to stop drinking. So if you have that, then you can be a member. We're not saying that you can't use other stuff. Bill Wilson himself used like fucking LSD and hallucinogens.
Right.
And
after he had become sober.
I'm not going to sit here and argue like abstinence versus what works. What fucking works for you and what makes you healthy is what
Whatever.
I'm for.
It doesn't matter. It's not about the
fucking
fucking
substance.
substance.
Is your wife happy?
It's not about the substance. It's the behaviors.
Right.
So we talk about anyway. But I just wanted to be clear on that because I don't think people understand the difference between.
But either way,
when people say clean, sober, whatever.
Either way, I'm betting everything in my wallet right now, this fucker ain't clean or sober or whatever.
Or he was probably drinking.
2 a.m.
Either
I get this message from this asshole.
Right.
Anyway, made the argument that nobody would choose this. And I hear that so often from people.
Yes.
If there's been like a clip that's taken out of context, on purpose, by the way, guys, part of our job is to promote our podcast, and a way to get views is to generally post something that's a little out of context. Because it's rage bait, because it makes people get interested and engage with your content. The goal for a content creator is that they dive in, go listen to the episode, and then they get on board and they really start to resonate with your message as a creator. But what most people do, because it's 2025 and our attention spans are fucking that big,
I think I did a Paige's perspective on this.
I'm holding up about a half an inch right now.
Yes, tiny.
Is that they will engage with the content first 10 seconds of it, if that.
Yes.
Determine that you are one of quote unquote those people, and then start to rip you apart based on whatever context they pulled from that clip, right?
Right.
This person had this argument. Well, no one would choose to be an addict. No one would choose to say that. And this is sort of argument to demean people that have to like voice your displeasure with how they're treated, and then I don't know. For me, what this really says, though, is you can't use nobody would choose this. All right. But you're right. If anyone had the option, would you choose this life of addiction? Everyone would say no. That is common sense. Okay. Would you choose this, Paige? Would you choose to be an addict?
I wouldn't have chosen to be married to an addict. Some people would tell me that I had chose him, though.
Yeah, it's bullshit. But You could ask a child, would you choose to be a drug addict? No one is going to say yes, okay? But if you found yourself there, would you choose to do something about it? Is the much more important question to be asking somebody.
Yeah.
Generally, no one would choose this comes from one of two people. People that are really defensive, that are not sober, or people that are really defensive because someone they know or love is not sober. No one would choose it, right? They're still on that 10 spectrum of compassion, and they're not ready to look at the nuance in any of this stuff.
Right.
But you can't use the nobody would choose this argument to demean other people that voice their displeasure with how they're treated by you. And then also deny the fact that you could make changes and that you do have some sort of a choice to affect change in your life that would make it better for you and everyone else around you. So in some ways, I would argue that once you know, and once you know about the options out there and you haven't done anything about it, you're making a bit of a choice. Let's be honest here. If I'm an attorney, that's the argument I'm making in court. But that's kind of how I feel about it anyway. Right. It's fucking ridiculous, that one.
It is.
They wouldn't choose this. You're right. No one would choose that. But once you know, you have a responsibility to do something about this. It's responsibility to yourself, to other people around you,
and this
children.
This person knew, by the way.
They knew.
This person knew. We know. We found out that this person did know and
absolutely
did know that
knew.
they were able to choose to get out of that mentality.
I wrote this. I was responding to someone in a.
It was actually, you were responding to the article. Comment. There was an article that she
posted in our community,
and I had talked about it earlier, where this person was comparing. We need to treat the same people. We needed to treat people the same as those who have cancer and those who have addiction. The same kind of compassion.
Yes.
And it was like, what?
I said, and this is, I think, one of the better things I've ever written.
Yes, we need to have this on our.
Until
everywhere.
we start acknowledging that there is a component of choice and personal agency in addiction, the perpetrators of abuse will continue to skate accountability in favor of a narrative that tells them they are victims of a lifelong chronic condition with no cure. That is the worst case scenario for this disease narrative.
Yeah.
That is the worst case scenario because it completely removes choice and agency, which no one wants to admit that choice and agency have a part in this.
No.
Except, unless you talk to people who have beat it.
Exactly.
They will all say that there was some component of it. I didn't say the whole component, some component of it.
Right.
For some people, it's medication-assisted treatment along with personal choice. For some people, it's exposure to 12-step and personal choice. For some people, it's pure willpower and personal fucking choice.
Yeah.
There is a component of personal choice. Everyone who has beat it knows that.
Yes.
But the people who get to have these conversations and create the narrative are not those people.
No.
They're the physicians that profit from it. They're the treatment centers that profit from it. They're the family members that are cast aside and fed this bullshit narrative that you just need to be more compassionate and more patient because they have a disease. They can't do anything about it. But talk to anyone who's actually recovered, no matter what path you choose. And there is some component on a pie chart. There is a cutout for personal choice and agency.
Yeah.
And it's not zero.
Damn, boo.
End of story.
Go off.
Sorry. It frustrates me because people have these conversations for me.
Right. Right.
And if you're in a recovery, you should be frustrated too, because people are having these conversations for us. Who knows better than us? The people who have actually done the deal, right? We've been there. You guys can talk about it all you want. We research it all you want. But unless you've really been there, I'm not taking that with the same weight that I would from someone who has. I'm just not.
Yeah, I agree.
So
let's reframe it when it comes to the moral failing or addiction, disease. What?
Which are we on, 3 or 4?
We're still here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we can say that addiction is a condition that includes moral responsibilities.
Fair,
right? Addiction impairs decision making.
Being a functioning member of society includes that.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
Why would this be different?
Because they have trauma. Addiction.
Oh, goodness.
You want to go down that path?
Did we talk about trauma yet?
I don't know. I mean, you kind of mentioned how some people...
Quick tangent then.
Okay.
Going to say this. I've said a few things on the show would get me canceled. This might be one of them. So who's that one content creator? I love her attitude. She's hilarious. Ashley. She's like,
from Washington.
Follow, unfollow, or block me.
Her?
Yes.
She's the runner?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that's
she's
what
great.
she says anytime she's got a hot take about something.
I don't agree with some of her stuff, but I still follow her because she's fucking hilarious.
I love her attitude.
She's so honest. Anyway,
I love
authentic.
her agency,
yes,
right?
She's
I
very
admire
authentic.
her.
Fucking love it.
Yeah, just follow, unfollow, or block me.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, when it comes to trauma, one of the more common things I see people respond to, if they've ever seen a clip of mine where I'm talking about
selfish, being selfish.
It's a selfish clip that typically gets these responses.
That's the clip that
when
went
I say
crazy.
that addiction's selfish, which it is.
It is.
It affects other people.
Won't change that.
All right, it's selfish. I'm not saying that people don't have the reasons for doing it, but it's still selfish because it affects other people. End of story. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
But people will say, but these people have trauma, and you wouldn't treat someone with trauma that way. Okay. I want you guys to know that I've been around and I've seen a lot of people with a lot of trauma, and I know the science on trauma and addiction. I know how linked they are. I know how important it is going to be to the future of addiction recovery to understand the role of trauma and addiction. I am not going to sit here and say that it plays no role, but I'm going to sit here and say it doesn't play a role for every fucking person you know. It doesn't. I am frustrated every time I see every single person thrown into this box that says they have trauma. It's almost like they have a disease, because when we hear disease, we think leukemia, we think cancer. We don't think about the nuance of trauma, okay? When we hear trauma, what we think of is sexual abuse, physical abuse, abandonment, if they've been through the foster system. And those people are out there and they are struggling. They deserve compassion. That's not even my argument. My argument is that you don't know the guys that I know that have never had trauma, and they love to get fucking high. They love getting high. They love an altered state of mind more than anything, because it feels good, because it's fun, because it's better than being bored. Because
boredom is a big one.
Because life can be stressful, because I have a bit of a social anxiety, and being high just makes it easier. And it's not always rooted in some deep, significant trauma. Most of the time, in my experience, knowing these people intimately, is that it's no more traumatic than anything you've ever been through in your life. When we talk about trauma, we're talking about things like stress. So when we talk about disease, we're talking about things like, it could be asthma. It could be something rather benign, even though asthma can kill people, but whatever benign disease is out there, it's not always worst case scenario. It's not always, those people are out there. They're out there, but there are also people that love to fucking get high. They just love to get high. And it's not much more complicated than that.
Right. And even if even if they do have trauma, we've said this a million times before, is that it's not an excuse to stay in it.
It's not.
Because you can get better. Like you had trauma, but you didn't even recognize that until years after sobriety. Like you didn't even need to go down that path to recover.
I did not go do this inner child bullshit for a decade.
Nope.
I didn't have to go down this, let's figure out all my trauma before I can quit using.
Nope.
No. If you just start doing the work of recovery, that stuff will work itself out generally.
That's what you mean by the how, not why.
We had an episode about, you don't necessarily need to know the why right now, but you do need to understand the how of how to walk forward, move forward.
And eventually the why comes out.
It is equally as important to understand the why, but it's not as immediate as the how.
You don't need to know that as honestly, I don't feel like you're going to gain more clarity when you start working on the how. You're going to gain more clarity on the why later on. If you just focus on the why, it's going to be even more difficult because you don't have the clarity to focus on that. You have to get sober first. You have to be working on your recovery first.
I had terrible stress responses my entire life. My nickname as a kid was Mad Matt. That's what my mother called me growing up, Mad Matt, because I throw tantrums over everything. I was a high-strung kid. My whole life, I had trouble with it, okay? When I got sober, I started to do the work of sobriety, which was about regulating my emotions. So that meant some really basic things we've all heard. When you get angry, take a second and take a huge breath with me. Pause, breathe out. Do that 3 times. So I'm sitting there like in my car doing this kind of stuff until my mind would sort of calm and I could rationally think through my response rather than my reaction. Yes. I was doing that stuff long before I thought about any sort of abandonment issues I had in my childhood or any sort of emotional abuse I'd been through in my childhood or any kind of dysfunction in my home. I was doing those things right then and there and learning as an adult how to regulate my emotions without ever understanding where it came from. Later on in life, I learned where it came from. And then it all just made sense. That just brought the whole picture together. But this narrative that every single person that struggles with addiction has deep wounds. I don't care what Gabor Mate says. I don't. He's smarter than I am. He's researched this more. But I don't care because I've been one. I'm telling you, it didn't work that way for me. I think it's a beautiful thing to say to help elicit compassion in people who do desperately need it, because they're out there. They don't get much and they need it. And there are wounded people that use drugs and alcohol to escape their reality. But there are also people, don't complicate it, that love to get high. They love to get high because reality is fucking hard and it's boring and it's stressful. And being an adult is hard, man. And raising children is hard. And working a job sucks. Because some people suck at dealing with that worse than you do because they have terrible coping skills for their own stress.
Yes.
And we're calling stress trauma now.
Right.
That's my beef with that whole conversation.
Go off, babe.
If that's anything gets me canceled, it's that. But I'm speaking from personal experience here, and I will drag people on the show with me that will back me up, that have lived that same life. I know many of them. It's not just like it's anecdotal because I know two. No, I know a ton of these people, and they will tell you it's not that much more complicated. Listen, if you're a spouse or partner, before you've even entered this relationship where you've no doubt experienced a real trauma, clinical trauma, okay? You've been through things in your life that were hard. We all have. If you've been on this earth and you've been conscious for the last 30 years or however long you've been with us, 50 years, you've endured trauma. How are you handling it? Okay?
Yeah.
You made decisions, you made choices, and we did too. And we have to acknowledge that. We have to stop ignoring that fact. Mm-hmm. Is it easier for some people? They have a propensity toward it. Yeah. Since when does that excuse what you've done?
Right.
It doesn't, man.
Right.
You show up in a court of law after you've just killed a family of 4 because you're an alcoholic and you drive drunk. You don't get to walk free because you had trauma when you were a child. You have to be held accountable for your actions.
100%. Yeah.
We're not doing that anymore.
No, we're not.
Boundaries have disappeared on this deal. Mm-hmm. I know people mean well when they want to have compassion, but there's nuance. Please understand there's nuance. Use your gut, use your instincts here, and use your head. Use your common sense. I promise you it will prevail, and you'll be able to see this gray area where you can have compassion while holding boundaries. And I think that's what we sort of mean throughout this conversation.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Sorry.
No, why are you apologizing? Good grief.
I never want to be insensitive to people. And I feel terrible if there's someone who's listening, who's struggling to get sober, who's like, oh shit, this guy's just like ripping me. I'm not, man. Mm-mm. I love you more than you will ever love yourself in this moment. I believe in you more than you will ever believe in yourself because I know what you're capable of. But I know it's also going to take you having to, some component of it, pull yourself up. And I will be there with you. And other guys like me will be there with you. And your wife, if she's got enough patience, we'll be there with you. But it won't be that way forever, and you can't continue to hurt people and expect them to buy into this narrative that you're just some wounded child who can't help themselves because you're a grown man with a gray beard. And you can do something about this shit. We can do something about this. And I'm so sick of this idea that, like, when did we stop inspiring people? When did we stop motivating people? Like, when did we stop
empowering them and
letting
them know that they are not, like, they're not prisoners to the life that they're living right now, because people want the easy way out. I mean, that's pretty much what society has done. They want easy. Oh,
hell yeah. Who doesn't?
Everybody wants an easy solution.
Hell,
and recovery is hard. But I mean, it's worth it. Like, nothing great in life, it comes easy. Like, you have to do the hard work to get through it.
You do, man. And everything that's worth doing is hard. Like, everything that's worthwhile in your life, if you look at your life, was hard. Mm-hmm. It was hard. That's why it has value, because it was hard.
Yeah.
Does recovery have to be like so hard that it's impossible to get through? No. And like, that's why medication assisted treatment is an option for people. That's why we have treatment centers with compassionate individuals who are there for you.
I want to say something about the medicated part. I think that it's like I've talked about with medication in general, is that I feel as though it's most beneficial whenever you use it as a tool to learn more tools so that you can get off of it eventually.
That's generally what most people do, but there are others.
That's why I wanted to throw that out there, because there are people who have been on Suboxone. Is that the
I knew someone that was on Suboxone for the better part of 20 years.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, why? Like, what are you?
It changed him, like deeply changed him. He may not have said that, but everyone that knew him knew this. He was like a zombie. I mean, he was there, but like,
but you're not
there was
working. It's still
no
a Band-Aid.
twinkle in his eye, you know?
It's still a Band-Aid. It's still something that kind of helps you. Like you use it as a tool to learn other tools to get off of it so that you can cope with life better. That's what I did with medication when it came to anxiety. I didn't use it as a crutch. It wasn't like, okay, I'm taking this and it's going to solve all my problems.
I used it.
You'd use it in treatment.
In treatment center. This is what I used to detox.
And you tried to detox on your own with it too.
Far less painful. It helps land the plane more softly than crash landing, which is really tough. Especially with opiate addiction, a lot of people relapse because it is so effing painful.
Yes, it's
I'll
very
never
painful.
forget the first time I realized that I was in withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
I actually this is a fucking embarrassing story. I was in high school, or maybe right after high school, like 18, 19 years old, taking like 20 pills a day or something like that. And I stopped and I was like, don't need to be using them. I'm good. Quit taking them. And then I start to get sick and I'm like, damn, I think I'm getting the flu or something. My body's aching. My legs hurt. My bones feel like they're trying to jump out of my skin and I get diarrhea. You feel horrible. And I go to the doctor and I'm telling him like, I feel sick. And like my joints are achy, man. Like I can't hardly move my elbow without it hurting. My hands hurt. They actually did a blood test and tested me for, what's that? Rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay.
They tested me for rheumatoid arthritis because those were the symptoms I was presenting, and then gave me some medication for that. I think they gave me like tramadol or something.
Okay.
It was a mild opioid, right? I remember taking the tramadol and then feeling almost instantly better, and then connecting the two and going, "Oh fuck, shit."
Yeah,
like, I'm
you
dependent.
went too far. Yes,
I'm dependent now.
on that.
And then I remember like scoring some dope the next day, and then realizing like, this is withdrawal. That's what this actually is.
Yeah.
Withdrawal's horrible. And so at some point you discover that you can actually be a functioning human amongst the living when you have a job to go to if you just take a hit.
Yeah.
And it just keeps the cycle going forever. It's fucking torture. It sucks. It's not fun.
Right.
Medication can help land that plane.
Yes.
I'm not a prescribing physician. I'm not a doctor, but I don't think anyway that it was meant to be taken for the rest of your life. But I know some people do.
I
Is
don't
that
think
right
it
or
was.
wrong? I don't know. I just know that for me, I can't imagine doing that.
Well, I just don't feel like you're learning any tools to actually deal with your problems
For
or your
me,
stress.
it was like taking a loan out. It's what it felt like. It was like, because you know you're going to have to pay the debt of like discomfort.
Yes, you
with
do.
withdrawal
You'll
at some
have to,
point.
at some point.
So if you stop taking Suboxone, you will still like you have.
You're still
to
going to have those
withdraw.
feelings.
So like for me, the goal was like, get this shit out of my system. Like
So
I
you
know
went-
my body can run on its own without this crap.
Right. So you stopped taking that in treatment.
In treatment. So they had me on a taper that was like 7 days, I think, or something.
Right.
I got to day 3 and I remember I was sitting in like a lecture, and it doesn't like get you high like your drugs get you high, but you feel a little something. And I remember I was sitting there and I started to feel it, and I was so sick of like the feeling of being high and not being present. Like I was so fucking sick of it. I told the physician, like, I think I'm ready to come off. And they were like, are you sure? Because you're going to feel like shit. And I was like, I'm ready, man. So I just went, and the withdrawals were bad, but they weren't as bad had I not been on a taper schedule already.
Right.
It was
They
like
were
3 or 4
manageable.
days. I think it was 4 days actually.
Okay.
More manageable.
Yeah.
Definitely less painful, but it's still just it's uncomfortable, man. For 2 weeks, you know.
But I feel like you kind of have to
felt like
go
shit.
through that.
I did not sleep a full night for 6 months. Not throughout the whole night for 6 months.
Okay. But I think that maybe that's important to go through so that it's
Dude,
a reminder to not go back down that road again.
My mantra, that's exactly what I did. My mantra was, I never have to feel this way again.
Yeah.
I never have to feel like this again.
Right.
If I can get through this, I never have to do this shit ever again. You look at it like the last day of finals in college, like it sucks, the all-nighters, the studying, but you know what? When you're done, you're done. You don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah. But
So-
that pushed you to learn the new, like the coping mechanisms to deal with everyday stress so that you didn't have to go back to medication.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with my anxiety and
Yeah, sure.
medication.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was getting off of
Lexapro. I don't know the actual drug name for that.
anytime I would take
SSRI, right?
Yeah, when I would get off of Lexapro, and even when I would get off of Xanax, I would have these really, really bad brain zaps, and it felt awful.
You said they were
and it
torture.
was scary, and I didn't like it. And I had to read about it and I was like, okay, it's not going to kill you. You'll be okay. But I knew that I had to get through that. And I knew that I had to learn all the coping mechanisms so that I didn't have to get back on the medication in case I ever had to go through that again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to have to go through that. But it was something that I had to go through in order to keep going and to keep doing the things that got me out of the anxiety and out of the depression, and to keep working on myself and the personal development and learning new coping mechanisms, and then doing what we do, like helping others get through that, because I didn't want to have to deal with that feeling ever again. I never wanted to get myself back into that position to where I would have to take something again.
Yeah.
But reality is that I could possibly go down that road again of having super high anxiety again. I have had that recently.
You never know. And I think that from a recovery standpoint too, people like, I don't want to for 1 second stigmatize whatever you and your physician think is best for you.
Right. Absolutely.
That's between you guys, and you know what's best for you. I think if you've got doctors around you, I hope anyway, psych meds, whatever you might need, like not everyone is set up out of the box to operate perfectly. Let's just be honest.
Right.
Science is an amazing thing. I'm not sure to what benefit it would be to get people hooked on more drugs that cause them physical dependence. You know what I mean?
Right.
My experience with pharmaceuticals and learning more about Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family and how that all went down has made me, I'm the furthest thing from a conspiracy theorist. I'm a rational person. But when I look at the pharmaceutical industry, man, my spidey senses tingle. I'm like, you guys are crooks, man. Yep. Up to no good. Yep. All of you, for the most part.
It's a business, It's a business. And they're going to do whatever it takes.
What can we push to them now?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I just, and maybe I'm a little crunchy in that aspect. I don't know.
Oh, I don't think so. I do believe that a lot of us are, I think society is somewhat naive when it comes to that.
Do you know the United States is responsible for consuming more than 80% of the world's opiate supply?
I believe that.
The world's. So
I believe that.
I did that thing with Aleve.
Yes.
Really interesting project I did with Aleve. It's not up anymore. I wish it still was.
I know. They took it down.
It was called The Painful Truth.
I think it was only up for a year.
And they used me as the spokesperson for promoting non-opioid alternatives to pain management. It was really interesting because the team that put it together was from Spain. And so they were so fascinated with the opioid epidemic. And I remember having breakfast with them before our production meeting. And they were talking to me and they were like asking me all these questions about how the doctor's visits work and these prescriptions that you get. And I remember this woman talking to me and she was like, this isn't a problem anywhere else in the world. Like, you don't get these sorts of drugs unless you have had surgery. And as soon as you go home, you don't get them anymore.
Right.
Like, pain is part of healing. And we understand that everywhere else except for the United States.
Yes.
But here we are almost in some ways defending it all, in like creating all these interesting ways to sort of defend it. And it's wild to me.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they mention something about antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds as well?
Yes.
Is that in their countries they did not
nearly as
prescribe
prescribed.
that?
Not nearly
but they
as
also
prescribed.
don't have, how we have commercials here on
New
medications?
Zealand and the United States are the only two countries in the world where pharmaceutical companies can advertise on TV.
People need to wake up to that. Like, and here in the United States, like, why are we shoving this stuff down people's throats and making it easier for them?
We could have a new show about capitalism.
We could honestly go on and on about our opinions on this or whatnot. But anyway, can we move on to the next thing real quick? Okay. Before I get into the next part, I wanted to talk. We're going to talk about how the disease model actually dismisses the spouses and partners, because this show really is about the spouses and partners. But I wanted you to talk about our program before.
I want you to talk about our program.
Okay. We have a program called Independently Strong. It was created by myself, Matt, and a licensed therapist. He is our clinical architect who has a few spots in there that talks about what we talk about on the podcast, but we go in a little bit deeper. We help people find their voice again, help them build up their self-esteem, make decisions with clarity. It's not about leaving or staying. It's not about your relationship status. It's about anybody who's been impacted by their most intimate partner who has been an addict. Or it's basically based on narcissistic abuse and behaviors.
It's also rooted in the science of social learning theory.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We do discuss, Matt has a module about addiction, so he discusses a little bit about that, but there's a lot of what healthy relationships look like, what they don't. We talk about the dynamics of what you may be dealing with. We have a relationship evaluation, which helps you really just look at your situation in reality.
It's like a budget.
It is. And I think that it's actually an important worksheet for a lot of people to go through multiple times throughout the program. Because your perspective will change based on different things that change within your life. And
as denial disappears.
Yes, as the denial disappears. And it sucks when we talk about denial, and a lot of us don't realize that we are in denial, but it's really just to help. The program is really just to help you find your voice again. And we talk about self-care. We talk about boundaries. We talk about so many different things. It's very deep. There's a lot of worksheets that go along with it, and you get access to us via email whenever you have any questions. And there is a weekly support meeting with others going through the program that we provide topics on, or sometimes it's just a place for you guys to have conversations and not feel alone and get advice from others who have been through something very similar that you've gone through.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. Where can you find out more?
You can go to twfo.com, twfo.com, or you can go to independentlystrong.com. And if you're a therapist that listens, we actually have a section for therapists if you would like to have more information on that, because some therapists like to work the program with their patients.
Yeah, if you want to vet it first to make sure this isn't just some snake oil or something like that, that it's rooted in, clinical basis, be happy to get you in touch with Dr. Taylor as well. That you can work through. If your patient's working through this, we will give you access to that so you can do it as well.
Yep.
Hey, while you're over at twfo.com.
Wait, hold on. And you can use the code Wheelies75 for 75% off.
As always,
discount. Yes.
Wheelies75 at checkout.
Yes.
Hey, while you're at twfo.com, if you want to find a way to support our show, you can do that in a few ways. We've got merch on that site. Paige is wearing a sweatshirt right here, which is a little warm in some places, but I don't know. I was looking at the weather somewhere today, somewhere up north. It's still
I think in New England it's chilly.
It's still like 50 degrees. But this morning in Edmonton, it was like 78
that's where the stars
degrees.
Are playing, huh?
Yeah, it was like 78 degrees or something.
That's why you
man.
know.
That's the only reason I know. We've got t-shirts, we've got hats, we've got recovery rocks. This is recovery rock. It's a really cool way to acknowledge someone else's journey in your sobriety, right? If you're someone like me, that's put people through some rather difficult things. You're working through it. You want to acknowledge that journey. This is a really kind way to do that. It's got our logo on the front if you're listeners, and on the back it says, "Thank you for being my rock." We've got these on the site. We've also got a free newsletter, which, man, it's a holiday today, and I forgot it was Monday. So I didn't write
we're recording
one.
On Monday, by the way.
Yeah. A little late for me. I didn't write a newsletter this week.
We were so busy this week.
Man, life's been kind of crazy, so I've been going
okay.
kind of like every other week right now. But
you may not get one next week.
We'll see.
Unless you can find some way to like get inspired this week and write something up. But we have a huge weekend, and then we're going.
But anyway,
on
we've also got
week.
A free Facebook community. We mentioned it just a bit ago. We've got a community where people can connect and talk, and they can get each other's phone numbers if you so wish, to have someone to talk to.
Connections have been made.
Whenever things get rough, because no one gets it unless you've really been there. No one understands. It's really hard to talk to people in your community about this, or someone who's not in it, because they don't understand the nuance of it. They're not going to tell you, just leave him. Just leave him. It's not that easy, right? It's difficult. Sometimes you just need people to hear you vent, and that's okay.
Right. But we like to make it very growth oriented to let you, we would love for people to post on things that they've learned and what they've been doing differently. And I love to see the growth in there and seeing where people where they started and where they are now. The group is only 2 years old now. I think that we just hit our right. 2-year mark.
Yeah. If you're in the group and you're listening to this, remember what it was like when you first got in there. I would love for you to sort of reflect for a moment and tell people what's different now versus a year or two ago. And maybe that's through connection. Maybe that's through a book that you heard about, or our podcast, and what you've learned through your therapy journey, whatever it might be, because someone on day one needs to hear that kind of stuff. They need to know that it can get better in some way, shape, or form. And you have that experience. It's just you don't really see it when you're the person carrying it, only when you look back. It's like Kierkegaard said. He said, life only makes sense looking backwards, but it has to be lived forwards.
Okay.
Sigmund Kierkegaard, I believe.
When you said the last name, it reminded me of when MJ would say "cure dogs" for corn dogs.
Oh, corn dogs, cure dogs.
So sorry.
Yeah. All right. Where are we going next?
Also, we do have member-led community calls throughout the week.
That's right.
Within the community, but you have to be a part of the community in order to get access to that. So anyway, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is like, how does the disease model dismiss the spouse? And we talked a lot about this in our last episode on how like where recovery is getting it wrong and where like a lot of spouses are just completely, thrown out. Like they don't even have a voice. They don't get to really speak their concerns.
They're labeled codependent.
Yeah, they're labeled codependent. They're told to just, understand that their partner has a disease. They need to stay on their side of the street. They need to just detach with love, all of this stuff that just still dismisses our experience. Because you can sit here and tell that you can tell us that this person has a disease, okay? And we might take that to heart and be like, oh my gosh. And I see it all the time where people will stay in situations way too long because of the disease model. Because they are still being lied to. They're still being gaslit. They're still being manipulated. They're still being emotionally neglected. The disease doesn't change the fact that this stuff is still happening to them. They're still being blamed for reacting. And then they're asked to be endlessly compassionate while they're being actively harmed.
I think in a lot of ways they're asked to be martyrs.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, but like I said, for me, when we first started this, like the whole disease model thing, like I dismissed it. Like I didn't even pay attention to it. I'm like, I don't want another excuse for how somebody's treating me. I don't need that information, like I know why you were the way you were. Like I've been with you since we were 14 years old. I saw things. I was there. I was part of your childhood.
And you also know that things happened that changed my brain.
Yes. And I know that too. But you were also a closet addict or whatever. But either way, I didn't want more excuses. I didn't need to have more understanding. I didn't need all that. Like I can have compassion for you and understand that you're struggling, but also fuck you for being an asshole, excuse my language, but like there's these dual thinking. It's like, I understand that, but I'm not going to tolerate that. And I'm not going to allow this disease concept be the reason you did what you did.
Right.
It's that simple.
I'm with you 100% on this.
And you should feel that way too. Like, you didn't want more compassion from me, honestly. I don't think that you did. When you went through recovery, it was all for you. It was like, I want to be a different person, come on board. Cool. I wasn't hurt enough at that point. We were 26 years old.
Remember that.
Please remember that. There was not infidelity. There was more. Lying was the biggest issue. Neglecting was an issue. The gaslighting was an issue. But
the financial
problems were the huge issue. That's another one. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. You have a disease, so you get to spend all of our fucking money? No. And it affects me and you lie about it? Like I'm supposed to have more compassion for that? Because you have a disease, like
they have a disease,
but it doesn't work that way. It doesn't compute with that. It doesn't. I remember. I think that probably your mom was a big part of the recovery part. Not a big part of your recovery, but she was there because she understood like Al-Anon and AA and stuff like that. So I remember she had talked about the disease for a while, and I was just like, I checked out, y'all. I did. I checked out. I was like, this is just not something that I'm going to really learn about, because I don't think that is
doesn't
relevant.
Fully explain it, man.
It doesn't. I don't think it's relevant for me to understand that, to have compassion for you. I think that it's really, it would go against my gut instincts, because then I would be focusing on the addiction or the substance instead of focusing on the behaviors and how I was treated. And that's what we talk about here. That's what we discuss. The behaviors, not the addiction.
Yes. Which flies in the face of what traditional recovery programs preach.
Yes.
I think it's why some people find it controversial. I think it's conversations that need to be happening, though.
Well, yeah. And I think that
this idea, and by the way, I don't know if you knew, but there is more than one model of addiction, right? The disease model is the most understood, probably the most studied. And I would say for the most part, agreed upon.
You think?
Probably when it comes to the neuroscience perspective and the changes that take place within the brain, identifying genes and markers in people, looking at the heritability of all of that, right? Okay. All that, like it pretty much lines up.
Right, for
you're not going to find someone that says it's complete bullshit. But there's also the psychological and behavioral model.
Okay.
That sort of deals with, this is sort of like Mark Lewis's perspective, the biology of desire, why addiction is not a disease, as he puts it. And this is the idea that addiction is a deeply learned behavior. In fact, he doesn't argue that it's a brain gone haywire. He says it's a brain doing exactly what brains are supposed to do. It's a learned behavior over time. You get a reward and avoid discomfort. It's conditioning over time. Right?
That's where I think that makes so much more sense.
And there's
to
also
me.
the biopsychosocial model. It's an integrated model that's sort of like it's a hodgepodge of the disease model and the behavioral model.
Okay.
There's a social learning model, which partly our course deals with.
Yep.
This is that behaviors are learned as a response to observing, you're imitating others, reinforcement based on your environment.
Yes.
Right?
Now I think that's something that came natural to me. That's what I always believed in.
Right.
Whenever you were going through stuff, even earlier on and with some of your stuff, I was like, I know where this came from. I know why you act the way you act.
Yeah. And then there's the life process model, which is more about personal agency, life meaning, and values. It's sort of like what I would call like a cognitive behavioral therapy model, sort of like what smart recovery aims to do with people.
I thought that was more of the behavioral one.
Similar, but different.
Okay.
I think because smart recovery is also very empowering. And it's not just like, hey, do this and then that and then this.
Okay. Okay.
It's a bit more like it's.
Do you know a lot about smart recovery?
I have not worked through it with a guide.
Yeah.
I've gone through their material. I've listened to podcasts about it. I've watched videos about it.
How do you feel about it?
I like it.
I remember
like
when
it.
I first heard about it, I thought this is really cool. The difference, it's very similar to AA, right? But it's not spiritual.
Right.
It's more of just like cognitive. It's habits. It's how to
secular
change.
recovery that deals with the how of recovery.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's cool.
And it's really, really great. And they've got a lot of really helpful worksheets. It's not as popular because it hasn't been around as long. And for a lot of people, it's not as accessible.
It's not as accessible, right?
Because it's not as popular.
Right.
You know? A lot of treatment centers don't even mention it.
No, they're still it's all like
it's just 12-step.
It's very rare that you
which
find
saved my
something
life,
else.
but I think that there are a million ways to
need to
recover.
change.
If you really want your best chance, learn about all of them.
That's how I wish. I wish that they
figure
would
out what
at
works
least,
for you.
I wish they would offer more options within treatment centers. Same with the spouses and partners, because I've seen a lot recently where they're just like, okay, go to Al-Anon, go to CODA, go to this, go to that. And it's like, but they're still the same. It's all a 12-step process. Why are we not offering more resources for, I know there's not much for partners and spouses, but that's why I wish that
Independently Strong was. It was a response. It was an alternative.
It's an alternative.
Like Al-Anon.
And I wish that we could get into some treatment centers to at least be a resource. Like, look, here's a podcast. Go listen to them. You're going to gain a lot of knowledge from the podcast. They have a community that is free as long as you listen to the podcast. You can talk to people. We have calls that are free. But if you want to bump up your recovery, obviously we have the program. Yeah. But still, it's something that I wish that they would offer more, even from the recovery standpoint, because there are so many different options out there.
People just stick with what they know. I think it's what it is. And then, I don't know, it's wild to me because a treatment center will push a program like Codependence Anonymous that quite literally calls in like its opening chapter, codependency, a disease.
Which it is not.
It is factually not
a disease.
A disease.
Nope.
It's not a disease.
It's not.
In my opinion, it is a response to trauma.
Yes, it is.
It is a survival mechanism where you are trying to hold together everything in your life. And this is born out of the abuse that you endure.
Right, which we dig deep into within the program. We do have a
so once again, kind of
that.
back to this top, like how does it dismiss spouses? It fucking gaslights spouses.
Yes, it does.
It gaslights spouses because they paired the disease model with the model of codependency, and they consider every spouse codependent. I remember being told, I've heard this in 12-step meetings, and I've also heard this in treatment center, was that you were sick before you ever met me. That you were sick too, and you showed up to our relationship sick, and you were always that way, and I didn't cause all that. They literally told me that, and I've heard that shit in meetings.
They told you that?
Yes, dude.
Wait, they told you that in treatment?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We're told that stuff. Like, they're sick in their own ways. They show up. They've got their own stuff. it's so invalidating to people who show up in healthy relationships.
Look, I had
find
shit.
themselves with an abusive. Listen,
We all had issues, but that is
no
one
doy.
thing that I'm not. You caused a lot of the problems.
Yeah, and I acknowledge that from day one. I remember thinking to myself, none of this sounds right, dude. When I met her, she was great. Like. Great. Like there were no problems. I fell in love with her.
And you knew my
history. She was awesome.
too.
And I looked up to you and you were like,
I had a
you had
stable home.
So many attributes I desired because you were so stable.
Right.
To the degree that you ended up falling into any quote unquote codependency box, I put you there.
Right.
I was able to see that clearly day one.
Yeah.
I didn't buy into it. A lot of people get help there. You know, if you do, good.
No, that's fine.
Glad
that's
worked.
that's what works. That's cool. Whatever. My fear is that this type of narrative can keep people in an abusive situation for longer than they need to be, and it affects their children, not only themselves.
Yeah, and to play devil's advocate and just to be fair, you were absolutely right. But for some other people, we need to acknowledge the fact that we know that most people with substance use disorder are men. We know that most of them, and just the way that families are set up, there's going to be a lot of men who are the primary breadwinner, and you have a stay-at-home mom. There are a lot of women who cannot leave.
No,
now.
I agree with that 100%.
And it can be a survival emergency kit to keep you sane in the meantime.
Right, but there are still steps that you can take in order to try to remove yourself from that situation further down the line.
Sure.
I don't think that you should just use it as a way to tolerate the situation because then it's not then you're powerless.
I don't think
right?
it's a permanent solution.
Right. No.
If you are in a situation that would put you or your children at some sort of detriment.
Right. Correct.
I just don't think it's a long-term solution. Now, can it be a survival kit that you can reach into so you can reframe your expectations and detach from the actions of this person that they're not personal? Yeah, you can do that. I think that in small doses to get through a tough month. I don't think this is something you should want to do for the 30 years.
Right.
I'll just put it that way.
Correct.
My opinion anyway. Listen, don't do you, but it's my opinion.
Yeah. All right.
All right, what's next?
I think that's about it.
Is that all we have?
I mean,
I feel like we covered it all.
Yeah, I think we did cover. We had some more, but if we want to go down in a part 2, we can. But I don't think we will.
No.
It's just something that we'll reevaluate.
Something we do need to talk about is, okay, we've talked about these two different ideas, and I think that they're both bad answers. I think that to say that someone is a weak-minded
Yeah, we talked about that and how to reframe that.
Okay, well, I just think that let's just stop choosing between two bad answers and let's find the nuance in these sorts of conversations.
Right.
I think many people know in their heart what that looks like. Everyone's is going to be a little bit different, but you know in your heart what that looks like. What I hope that you've gotten from this is sort of some validation that you're not getting from a lot of people. You're not getting from the average article that you stumble across. You're not getting it from whatever community that you're visiting currently. You're not getting it from like online creators. You're not getting this stuff. I know you're not because it's not out there. Because when we started making our content, I think us and probably Annie the safe parent,
yes,
who will be a guest one day, are about the only two people really having this conversation in a sea of millions of recovery creators.
Yeah.
We're the only two that I'm aware of. If you're out there, I want to know about you.
Please.
But for the most part, it's just us. And it's, you know, the first ones through the wall get bloody. Doesn't mean we're wrong.
I just know a lot of this stuff, it fuels me to keep going because, you know, we've talked about this before, how it's a lot sometimes, you know, this work can be very heavy when we haven't been in this for a very long time, you know, like in our everyday life, we're very stable. We are very equal. We have, you know, a very healthy marriage and relationship. So when we go back into this, sometimes it's draining and sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's really hard. But then there are things that pop up within either the community or on social media, on IG or TikTok, or we get messages, you know, from very unstable people. It's a reminder that what we're doing, what our work is very, very important. And I want to keep going, and I want to keep having a voice for those who don't have a voice right now, because I think that what we're doing is big. And I think it's going to help a lot of people, because like you said earlier, your mentality on recovery and addicts and addiction in general has changed a lot. Like your compassion, the spectrum has gone to a different side because you see things that you didn't see before.
I talk to their wives now.
Right.
And
nobody else is doing that.
You can sit in a meeting with a 12-step meeting, for instance, and you can sit there with 30 people and you hear their side of things. You don't know what goes on in their home.
Right.
Now I do.
Yes.
And I'm not happy about it.
Right. You know that
I feel
they're partly full of shit.
I feel a personal responsibility to help change. I'm after men primarily, but to help change men and the way that they view accountability, marriage, equal partnerships, and recovery, parenting, every bit of it,
Personal
to create healthier men out there. That's what I'm really about, but also validating the people who may never get that and to let them know that they're not crazy.
Right.
But yeah, I've seen both sides of it, man, and it will change you.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah.
Totally different outlook now.
So yeah, we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep pushing forward. We're going to keep doing what we do, and we're going to love you until you love yourself.
Yeah. Looking forward to the next week's. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but I think I'm going to try to do something special. Don't hold me to it. But
do I know about this?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
All right. Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
And we'll see you.
Bye.